Live from Citizen TV, this is JKL with Jeff Koinange.
And you know, if it's Wednesday, it's all about those three letters on the keyboard that follow each other, JKL. Thanks so much for joining us on this very last Wednesday in November. We've got a great show for you today. Up first, Dr. Winnie Byanyima. She's the executive director of UNAIDS. You may not know who she is, but she just happens to be the wife of Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye, who was kidnapped in broad daylight here in Nairobi about 10 days ago. We want to know what happened. She's in town and she'll let us know the whole details. And then later on, the man who doesn't shy away from calling it like he sees it. That's right, Court to Secretary General Francis Atwoli. He may be throwing phones around the studio and calling people Shenzi and stuff. I tell you, he'll be talking about from the mountain to the lake, politics 101. It's going to be a great show. What do you say? Start tweeting at Koinange Jeff. That's Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is Jklive. Jklive begins right now, tonight.
We are asking all the medical doctor interns across the country, in all the facilities, to stay at home immediately.
Doctors' Union orders intern medics to withdraw services, accusing government of failing to pay them. Billionaire hackers. 24 Kenyans among suspects arrested by Interpol over multi-billion shilling online fraud in Africa. No more Adani deals. High Court bars government from entering into any contracts with the Adani Group.
Some national treasury says they don't have documentation. This is very interesting.
Treasury taken to task over unexplained 160 billion shilling foreign debt repayment. All right, welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yulanzale. Now, Kenyans could be staring at another doctor's strike in the coming month after KMPDU called for a special delegates meeting to issue a strike notice. Now, the union says that it has been necessitated by the government's failure to implement the return to work formula that ended the 56-day strike earlier in the year. The union has already asked all intern doctors to withdraw their services from public hospitals immediately, citing poor working conditions and non-payment of salaries that have driven some of the young doctors to suicide. Let's begin our broadcast with our very own Brenda Wanga.
They took to the streets of Thika town, spurred by the death by suicide of one of their own. Dr. Francis Njuki, aged 29, was until his demise a pharmacist at the Thika Level 5 hospital. His body was discovered hanging from the roof of his rented house in Kiganjo Estate on Monday.
Kaweza kuprocess, alafu ndio akaweza kutoa hiyo mwili na ikapelekwa mochari hapa Thika Level 5. Baadaye ndio siku ya jana Tuesday
Until his death, Njuki suffered a fate similar to that of his demonstrating colleagues, working without pay for 4 months. The doctors' union says his death is just one of many such cases and attempted suicides by intern doctors. In September, yet another intern, Dr. Desire Mora, also committed suicide.
This now brings a total number of 2 interns who we've lost in 2 months under the same similar circumstances. I'm also aware of 5 other interns who have attempted suicide. Unfortunately, were rescued and hospitalized.
The union has now stepped in to stem what they say is the exploitation of intern doctors by the government.
We are asking all the medical doctor interns across the country, in all the facilities, to stay at home immediately.
The union accuses the government of failing to fully implement the return to work formula that was signed in May, bringing to a close the 56 days strike by the union. That agreement, amongst other things, would have seen doctors get their basic salary arrears, harmonization of the salary scale of doctors, and the provision of medical cover, as well as the posting of intern doctors.
Because Kenyans are being put in a plane where the pilot, who is the doctor, is suicidal. But the airline tells you that they have insured the plane, they have fueled it, and you, the patient, should trust yourself to fly with this sick pilot.
The union says the failure by government to hold its end of the deal will be costly as another strike looms.
We're going to give now notice for the nationwide strike of all the doctors. We have the SDC, or Special Delegate Conference, which then will determine whether we're going for 7 days or 14 days, or at most 21 days. But I believe because of the urgency of the matter and the frustrations that there is with the doctors across the entire country, we may not go beyond 14 days.
If the doctors make good their threat, the country will witness an unprecedented second doctor strike in 1 year, further impacting the health sector that is already grappling with the change in systems in the transition to universal health coverage. It may also affect learning in the health sciences at the university level. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
All right, Brenda, thanks so much for that. In switching gears now, and 24 Kenyans are among over 1,000 suspects who have been arrested in connection with the theft of more than 24 billion shillings in online fraud. Now, according to a report by Interpol, the Kenyan suspects allegedly stole 1.1 billion shillings after altering banking systems security protocol. Now, in the 2024 Africa Cyber Threat Assessment Report, prepared in conjunction with Afripol, ransomware, business email compromise, digital extortion and online scams were identified as some of the notorious ways used to steal from more than 35,000 victims worldwide. Let's get more from our very own Njoroge Gatete.
The ghost of online fraud in the country seems far from over if a report by Interpol and Afripol on cyber threat assessment is anything to go by. 24 Kenyans have made it to the list of online fraudsters in the continent after stealing over 1.1 billion shillings. In the report, the 24 were allegedly involved in an online credit card fraud where they stole funds after altering the banking system's security protocol. The funds were redistributed via SWIFT to companies in the United Arab Emirates, Nigeria and China. It was later diverted to digital asset institutions offering trading and financial services regulated in multiple jurisdictions. Interpol has stated that the credit card fraud is on an industrial scale not just in Kenya but across Africa. In Senegal, 8 people, including 5 Chinese nationals, were arrested after they allegedly stole over 700 million shillings from 1,811 victims in an online Ponzi scheme. The suspects were also found with over 900 SIM cards, phones, laptops, and copies of victims' ID cards. A similar arrest was made in Nigeria, where one person was arrested after conning people over 38 million shillings in an online investment scam. Operation Serengeti, conducted between September 2nd and October 31st, targeted criminals behind ransomware, business email compromise, digital extortion, and online scams, which have been identified as prominent threats in the continent. During the operation, 1,006 suspects were arrested for allegedly scamming 35,000 victims, over 24 billion shillings worldwide. Over 134,000 infrastructures and networks were dismantled during the joint operation. Afripol, which brings together police officers from African Union member states, has called on concerted effort to tackle emerging threats like AI-driven malware and advanced attack techniques. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, Joroge, thanks so much for that. At the same time, the High Court has issued orders stopping the government from any further engagements with the Indian-based firm Adani that was to take over the operations of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Now, lawyers led by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka told the court that despite the pronouncement by President William Ruto in Parliament cancelling the Adani deals, they want the case heard to its logical conclusion, even as lawyers representing Adani sought to be expunged from the proceedings. Let's get more from our very own Stephen Leto.
Days after President William Ruto announced the cancellation of the Adani deals in the country, the case is back to the corridors of justice, with opposition leaders moving to the High Court, pressing for orders seeking to bar any further dealings with the Indian-based firm. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka led other opposition leaders in court, seeking orders to bar the government from any further dealings with Adani. Justice Bahati Mwamuye granted the orders restraining Adani Group from taking over JKIA and its assets. The conservatory orders also restrain the national government from entering any contract with the Adani Group.
Even if William Ruto's government, right, says we have stopped Adani, and he talked in his State of the Nation of address that he could bring other partners, even those other partners are injected.
The opposition leaders further want all details of deals conversed with Adani made public.
You had some discussion about what was actually cancelled. All right? Whatever was cancelled, those things need to be brought before the court. And therefore, we remain seized and want to assure Kenyans that we are seized of this matter.
The Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, our pride and joy, the project was valued at over 268 billion shillings. We have no doubt, certainly as petitioners in this matter, that over 2.6 billion shillings has already been paid to Kenyan officials, because that is how Adani operates.
The opposition leaders also claim that other than JKIA and Ketraco deals, the Adani Group also had a hand in the Social Health Insurance Fund.
We are still looking for orders, and I thank Senator Okiya Omtata in the Shah case. What we are saying today to William Ruto, all Adani deals must be dropped. Yeah. It's not enough to drop 2 deals, JKIA and Ketraco. We know that Adani is in Shah. In fact, the proper name for that should be Adani Shah. That too must be dropped.
On Adani's side, lawyers representing the company sought to be expunged from the proceedings on grounds that the Kenyan government had not entered into any deal with Adani, and the pronouncement by President William Ruto during the State of the Nation address cancelling the deals. In view of the foregoing, the High Court ordered the state to produce evidence to substantiate claims that the Adani JKA deal had indeed been cancelled. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
All right, Leto, thanks so much for that. At the same time, the National Treasury was today put to task over anomalies of over 160 billion shillings external debt repayment for the past 3 financial years. The Auditor General raised a red flag over the repayment with concerns of budgeted corruption. As our very own Emmanuel Toh now reports, the Auditor General's report also reported or pointed out to possible plunder and wastage of public resources, exposed lack of documentation for some of the projects, and what they termed as corruption in the first place. Take a listen.
The Auditor General Nancy Gathungu, in the special audit report on the debt servicing of external loans in Kenya for the past 3 financial years, raised pertinent questions on expenditure amounting to 161 billion shillings in unclear debt repayment. The Auditor General disclosing to the National Assembly Public Debt and Privatization Committee of the National Treasury's variance in budgeted, approved and actual debt services for the financial years 2020 to 2021, 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023, saying the variances went above the 5% allowed by the law, hitting 10% of the amounts approved. In the financial year 2020 to 2021 and 2021 to 2022, the repayments were less than the control of budget approved amounts by 1.4 billion shillings, and a staggering 83.3 billion shillings respectively, as the National Treasury underpaid on the amount allocated by the Control of Budget. However, in the preceding financial year, the National Treasury went over and beyond the approved amount by a whopping 77 billion shillings.
This could be a mischief for corruption. If your budget is, in fact, the PFM Act is very clear. You don't procure services and goods beyond your budget.
Our position is that these variances are high, and if they are doing the budgeting process, it should be obtained on the fact that they are also forecasting accurately, so that the variances are not as big as we are seeing there, Chair.
The Treasury saying the fluctuations were caused by the exchange rates of the Kenyan shilling against other currencies.
Have you satisfied yourself that on that date was how much was approved, and then there was that huge depreciation, again 77 billion out of 311 billion is a huge percentage.
And even so, the Auditor General says she could not get all the required documents to put the borrowed monies to specific projects. The audit revealed that out of the 32 sampled project loans, only 18 projects had undergone feasibility studies to ascertain their need. At the same time, the audit established that 22 out of the 32 sampled project loans did not have documentations or evidence to support public participation, leading to projects which did not have the public's input. A majority of the project loans also did not have approvals, exposing the projects to the risk of double financing and incurrence of costs outside the budget. The audit also revealed that only 5 out of the 32 project loans had legal opinions from the Attorney General. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Right from toe to toe. Thanks so much, Emmanuel. Now, Tana River Senator Danson Mungatana has withdrawn the religious organizations bill that seeks to regulate religious groups. Now, the proposed bill aimed at curbing extremism and addressing the challenges posed by unregulated religious organizations had gone through the first reading in Parliament. Mungatana says the withdrawal will allow for further consensus building among stakeholders. And elsewhere, the PCA Church has accused the government of resorting to intimidation tactics to gag the church from calling out its excesses. Take a listen.
Is a sigh of relief for churches in Kenya after Tana River Senator Danson Mungatana formally wrote to the Speaker to withdraw the religious organization bill that sought to regulate religious groups. The bill had sparked widespread condemnation from churches under the umbrella of the Pentecostal Voices of Kenya, with clergy warning that if passed into law, it would infringe on their right to worship. The men of cloth advocating for self-regulation.
Ametusikiliza na akaona kuna umuhimu wa kwanza kurudi kwa kanisa, tutengeneze kitu itakubalika nchini Kenya na makanisa yote.
Mswada huu umekuwa withdrawn, alafu itaishia tu pale. Tumetengeza task force ya kanisa, tutaanza kupanga vile tunaweza fanya self regulation.
Senator Danson Mungatana had crafted the bill in the wake of the Shakahola massacre that claimed 446 lives. The massacre was attributed to the Good News International Church led by Paul Mackenzie, who faces prosecution alongside other suspects for the loss of lives. Senator Mungatana now seemingly hidden calls by the church for self-regulation.
Tuta withdraw ama tutatoa ile mswada ili tuweze kupata nafasi ya kutembea na stakeholders wote, ya kwamba ile sheria ambayo tutakuja kutengeza baadaye itakuwa ni sheria ambayo inakubalika na kila mtu.
In Kiambu County, the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, PCA, has accused the Ruto administration of using intimidation tactics to bar religious leaders from critiquing the government. The moderator of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, Dr. Thegu Mutahi, accuses the government of sending suspicious worshippers to attend church services to intimidate preachers from castigating the government.
There are people who come to church, they don't identify themselves. They are suspicious. And this has happened lately when the church has come hard on the government. We are concerned that some of these visitors are not genuine. They are kind of trying to sell fear.
Dr. Thegu also wants the government to immediately constitute the IEBC, terming the delay as a deliberate ploy by Parliament to avoid accountability. The religious leader says Kenyans have lost confidence in Parliament, which they believe is under state capture.
What the executive wants done is done in record time. That shows us like Parliament is not independent. It's like it's arm twisted. Maybe that's why our parliamentarians didn't want a fully constituted IBC, because it may also work against them. So we guess that is why sometimes they are never in a hurry to constitute a proper IBC.
Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
All right, Mary, thanks so much for that. Switching gears altogether. And 24 banks are on the verge of a total shutdown that will affect more than 7,000 employees if the proposed increment of core capital from 1 to 10 billion shillings in 3 years is done. Now, this came during a session where the Kenya Bankers Association made submissions on the proposed business laws before the National Assembly Finance Committee. Now, the bankers warned against introduction of additional taxes on financial transactions, stating that the effect will reflect on interest rates charged through loans. Let's get more from our very own Seth Olale.
The proposed increment of core capital for financial institutions under the Business Amendment Laws from the current 1 billion to 10 billion shillings in 3 years will limit access to credit, stagnate the economy further, cause loss of employment, and reduce government revenue in taxes. According to the Kenya Bankers Association, the core capital raise from 1 billion to 10 will directly affect 24 banks that require a total of 150 billion shillings to meet the threshold.
24 banks extends loan to the tune of currently 539 billion to the private sector. That's 13% of the total loans that has been extended by all the banks to the private sector.
While presenting its memoranda to the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Finance and Planning, the association stated that 6,779 Kenyan employees will be affected, with an additional 627 rental premises subjected to closure if the proposal will pass.
It will work counterproductive because now Kenyans and businesses will actually not be served.
However, the lenders are accused of cutting credit to the private sector, particularly to MSMEs and SMEs, as well as investing clients and investing in other asset classes, such as lucrative government securities for higher yields.
We are requesting that if we can be able to stagger within 8 years progressively, so that we can reach at the 10 billion in 2032.
Other entities which participated in Wednesday's public hearings on the tax amendment laws include Westminster and LexLinks Consultancy. Deliberations being made on the tax amendments laws, the tax procedures amendments laws, as well as the business amendments laws are expected to shape up the economy, including the formulation of the 2025-2026 budget-making process. Seth Olale, Citizen TV at the KICC, Nairobi County.
All right, Seth, thanks so much for that. On that note, we're going to switch to the bench real quick because we have on the bench, first up, Dr. Winnie Byanyima. She actually is the executive director of UNAIDS. Did you know that the first case of AIDS in Kenya was detected exactly 40 years ago, 1984? She heads UNAIDS, but she's also happens to be the wife of Ugandan opposition leader Dr. Kizza Besigye, who was kidnapped, abducted in broad daylight right here in the streets of Nairobi about 10 days ago after he came to attend a book launch. He was bundled in a car, driven to Kampala, dumped in a military jail, and brought before a court. Goodness gracious me. Dr. Byanyima, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for your time. So how is Dr. Besigye right now?
He's well. He's in good spirits, but he's in a prison. He's sleeping on the floor. Prison conditions aren't good, but he's strong.
He's still in prison. They didn't release him after his hearing?
No, he was charged in a military court. That's wrong because he's a civilian. And then remanded in a civilian prison just to calm the anger in the public.
Yeah. Tell us exactly what happened. What did he tell you happened to him when he was abducted from the neighborhood in Nairobi?
Well, he came here to Nairobi to attend a book launch by the Honorable Martha Karua, who's a friend. And by the way, you should all read her book. It's an autobiography. He arrived on a Saturday, and the launch was going to be on a Sunday. Then someone he knew had invited him to meet him here in Nairobi, who is a British national, as far as he knows. And this British national said he had a group of colleagues and friends and businesses who invest in Africa who wanted to support political parties and could support their mass mobilization work, their party activity. So he was exploring this. And he was invited to a meeting in Riverside. He went with his party colleague, Haji Obed Kamlegea. And when they arrived there, and they entered the room, and were just being introduced to two people, the one he knew and another he didn't know, a knock on the door, and it is announced that it's Kenya police that has arrived. Turns out it's 8 men in plain clothes. He could not tell who was who, but they say you're under arrest. And in the room was this man and his friend with 2 guns and with a box of money, or so-called money. He doesn't know whether it was money or not. And they said, you're under arrest. And he said, wait a moment. I don't know why this man came with 2 guns. I don't know why he has this box of money. I did talk about fundraising, but I wasn't expecting this. He didn't have time. He was just taking photographs of. And then the man who opened the door, the British man, had disappeared at this time, vanished. And he was left with one other man whom he didn't know. So 4 of the men bundled him and his party colleague in a car and drove them the whole night towards the border with Uganda. They crossed the border into Uganda without stopping. It was clearly an operation, well planned. Somewhere towards Nakuru, the 4 men who abducted them forgot and started talking in our language. So Kizza Besigye said, well, I wish you told us we speak the same language, just to joke. Yeah. And that's how they then crossed them into Uganda and threw them into a military jail.
That must be like a 10, 12-hour ride, drive.
Yes, they drove all night, they sat on them, and they arrived in Kampala when he said he could hardly walk. And they threw them in the military jail. This has happened before. He's been through this since he first declared that he would run against President Museveni. And that's now close to 25 years ago.
25 years. Tell me something. How many times has he been arrested? Because do you know, does anyone keep count anymore?
No, we don't. We know that there was one year when he broke the Guinness Book of Records of the most arrested man in that year.
Yeah.
More than 52 times.
Good Lord.
So an average of more than 1 arrest per week.
Per week, yeah. 52 weeks in a year, yeah. Tell me something. These two were best of friends at one point, weren't they? Dr. Kizza Besigye and Yoweri Museveni. They were best of... In fact, Dr. Kizza Besigye was his personal doctor. What went wrong?
I wouldn't say best of friends. They were comrades in a struggle to liberate Uganda from dictatorship. I was in that struggle with them too. We were comrades. Yes, with good relations. But I think along the way, after we won that war, we disagreed. And it's not only him. There are many people who along the way felt that the vision, the mission, that the movement had walked away from it. So the president doesn't take differences easily and doesn't make room for disagreement. So one by one, many senior leaders, I could say most senior leaders of the national resistance movement, have either retired, walked away, or gone into opposition. That's the sad reality of a liberation movement that lost its mission.
Yeah, what a shame. Look, have they told Dr. Besigye what they're charging him with?
Yes, there's a charge sheet. And it's, first of all, what's wrong with this, the first thing that's wrong is that he should be in a military court. He's a civilian. He retired from the National Resistance Army many, many years ago. And 20 years ago, he was dragged before the military court and charged with terrorism, treason, illegal possession of guns, and rape, 4 capital offenses. His lawyers went to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court declared that a civilian must never be tried in a military court. So he shouldn't be there. But he's there because the burden of proof in a military court is much lower than it is in a civilian court. So, and the court doesn't even have a lawyer who's on the panel. The chair of the panel isn't even a lawyer. So they can just decide that we're convinced you did it. And that's it, you're convicted. So first, he shouldn't be there. Secondly, now they've charged him with illegal possession of those guns he found in the room with 2 little pistols. According to him, they are even very old pistols that were with this man, who then ran away, wasn't even arrested. He didn't run away, walked away. Yeah. He's charged with undermining, compromising, undermining state security, the security forces, prejudicing the capacity of security forces. This is a very vague offense. If you, for example, you were a cook in the military and you didn't cook your food well for the soldiers, you could be charged under that offense. You could also be charged on it if you were plotting to overthrow the government and to hit the army. So it's just a wide offense that you could charge you for anything. Yeah. So such are the offenses. Yeah. They are very serious.
Isn't it a shame that he was visiting another country very legally? He came through the airports, security, immigration, very legally, and then all of a sudden he's kidnapped in broad daylight by forces from his country. Isn't that a shame on us, especially?
Look, Jeff, I'm fighting for freedom, liberty of my husband. I'm defending him to have justice in a civilian court. It's not for me to talk about the role of Kenyan security or the Kenyan government in this. It's sad, of course, that he was kidnapped from Kenya. Kenya, for us, has been the country where we all run. I run here fleeing Idi Amin, and it's always welcomed refugees. It's the stable country of the region. It's the growth engine of the region. Yeah, we want to be safe here, and we've always been safe here. But this incident, I think it's for you Kenyans to talk about, not for me.
Yeah. What next for you and Dr. Besigye? What's next?
Well, I'm quite disrupted. I'm supposed to be in Geneva now preparing for World AIDS Day on 1st of December.
It's coming Sunday.
Yes, and I'm coming back here in about 2 weeks' time because our board, UNAIDS board, has been invited and is being hosted here by your government. So I'm busy in that, but I have to rush back and stand by him and ensure that he's got the lawyers he needs, that he's well cared for in prison. So I've got to balance caring for him, defending him, and doing my job. But it is what it is. Yeah.
Were you a little scared, a little worried coming into the country, not knowing what's going to happen to you? Because obviously security forces know who you are. Were you a little worried?
In Uganda?
Here, coming to Kenya?
Oh, not at all. Not at all, not at all. I mean, this is quite, it's something that's unusual. We've always taken it for granted. We are very safe here, and I feel very safe here. But this, is something that shouldn't happen and shouldn't happen to anybody else. Yeah, it's serious.
Yeah. This coming Sunday, you mentioned, is World AIDS Day. Yeah. The first case of AIDS in Kenya was discovered in 1984. 40 years ago. And that 40 years, I'm sure in Uganda was a little later after that. In 40 years, have we made progress, despite the fact that there is no cure for AIDS? Have we made progress?
Huge progress. And the reason we are here, our body is here, is because Kenya is one of the countries making fastest progress against HIV/AIDS. You are a leader. Kenya is a leader. You have 1.4 million people who are HIV positive, and out of these, your government has, with the support of donors, has been able to put 1.36 million on treatment. So they're living good lives, but you still have a lot of new infections. So we're here to support Kenya, and Kenya gets a lot of support, external support to fight this disease. You put 35% of your own resources into buying everything that's needed, paying workers. 65% is paid for by rich countries. Of these, the Americans pay, this year, they paid $500 million to support people living with HIV. And the Global Fund, which is also 30% American funding, paid $100 million. So altogether, you got about $600 million this year to fight the disease. And you put down the 35% also. So we are here because we want to drum up continued support, because you were talking on the news, you saw that how Kenya is highly indebted, just like all the other countries in the region. You need this support to remain. If it's taken away, then you have to find a $600 million from somewhere else. Yeah. So we fight for this support to remain for Kenya. Other countries are even worse off. I mean, like Uganda is 95% externally funded, puts in only 5%. So we work to mobilize the support that Africa needs to fight this disease, and also the policies that are needed.
Yeah.
That's my job.
Absolutely. Dr. Winnie Byanyima, it looks like you're fighting on every section, every corner, everywhere.
You can say that again.
Good luck.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for your time.
I love your show. I follow it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And I hope you feel safe here in Kenya.
Absolutely safe, with so many wonderful friends and collaborators in the Ministry of Health everywhere. This is my country. I love it.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Dr. Winnie Byanyima, she's the Executive Director of UNAIDS, also the wife of Ugandan opposition leader Dr. Kizza Besigye, in town for a very important conference, UN World AIDS Day, this coming Sunday, December 1st. We're going to take a quick break, come back, plenty more news ahead, business, sports, and then COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli standing by to give us a whole bunch of sound bites. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is Jklive. Jklive takes a break. We'll be back in the meantime. It is exactly 46 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live here at Citizen Television. Great interview there with UNAIDS Executive Director Dr. Winnie Byanyima. More news. Busia Senator and activist Okiya Omtata has officially launched his presidential exploratory mission by establishing a 10-member committee to assess his viability to run for president in 2027. The committee will gather views from Kenyans across the country and make a determination regarding Omtata's viability to challenge President William Ruto. Omtata has called on Kenyans to rally behind him as the alternative against the Kenya Kwanza government. Let's get more from our very own Melita Oletengas.
Politician Okiya Omtata is taking a bold new approach ahead of the 2027 presidential race, evaluating his own prospects before diving into the deep end of the presidential race. A 10-member exploratory team led by Mary Kathomi will conduct nationwide opinion polls to gauge Omtata's popularity.
My focus is not going to be diminished. And I'm not one who walks away from a fight. I know there's a fight to dislodge President Ruto from power. And that's a fight I'm going to take on.
The team, made up of political strategists, activists and legal experts, will travel across the country gathering insights on Omtata's appeal, examining the political landscape and strategizing ways to outmaneuver potential opponents in the game of political chess.
We in this committee are very clear that Senator Omtata is suitable. We are very clear about that one. What we will be doing now is to check whether he is viable. In other words, what do other Kenyans think?
Gen Z activist Hanifa Farsafi, who is also in the committee as a public relations strategist, has backed Omtata's bid, creating a new conversation on the Gen Z's inclination.
I'd like to say this loudly and proudly that Okia reflects with all of us Gen Z. Whatever it is we are fighting for and whatever it is he's been fighting for. So he reflects with our desire and our fight for a better Kenya.
Omtata is optimistic that Kenyans will financially support his campaign in the long run.
And we have had a problem with the campaign financing. In this particular case, we are going to depend on ordinary Kenyans to be the ambassadors of this change. And already there are indications that the Kenyans are going to do whatever they will do in their small spaces.
A first-time senator and long-time activist, Omtata has been relentless in his criticism of the current administration and is now positioning himself as the alternative. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, Oletenges, thanks so much for that. Now, this story is for residents of Syokimau. That's right. And residents there have protested the deplorable state of roads in the estate. Now, as part of City of Potholes series, Citizen TV visited various roads within the densely populated estate and found out that most roads, which were constructed barely 9 months ago, are impassable, with motorists, especially along Chadi Road off Airport Road, are forced to drive through huge gullies. Our very own Odie Francis reports on the dire state of the roads in Syokimau.
This is Chadi Road, an 800-meter stretch of road off Airport Road in Syokimau Estate. The road, which was constructed under the Kenya Urban Roads Authority late 2023, is completely worn out. It is a nightmare for motorists along this road leading to Mwananchi Road in Syokimau, Machakos County. Motorists, boda riders and pedestrians tell us of the nightmare they have to endure every day.
We are a disappointed lot, if I can say, because like this road, if you see it, it was just done a few months ago.
Hata ukiwa umeng'ara vizuri unaelekea kazini unapata kwamba saa zingine gari zinaruka zinakumwagia maji kwenye miguu na ukifika kazini hata pia umechafuka.
Drainage in this area is unimaginable. Water remains on the road and potholes.
The county government here is doing a lot of, I don't know.
You are local MP? Local... No, and we have never seen him. He's called Macau. We have never seen him as Syokimau people. Yes, and even the governor. We have cried to them as residents for them to come around and even just do the maraming, but they never show up.
We continue on Mwananchi Road, but the problems are the same. On this road, the contractor has built 1 kilometer and ended the contract here.
I'm standing on Mwananchi Road. In front of me is Link Road, the road that links all the 7 roads within this Syokimau area. On my right is Syokimau Police Station. On my left is Syokimau Health Center. And my far right is Chief's Office. This road is inaccessible.
Ironically, the road leading to this hospital, which has been under construction for 20 years without completion, this police station and this chief's office remain desolate. The frustration of vehicle owners is evident here.
I'm paying
a tax to the government, but the roads and the facilities they're providing is very poor.
Odie Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Right, OD, thanks so much for that. Now, the Sambaza Furahana Safaricom campaign, in partnership with Royal Media Services, continued its vibrant month-long journey, taking the festive cheer to Nyanza region. Residents turned up in droves at caravan stopovers, leaving with hearts full of joy and hands filled with exciting prizes as Safaricom celebrates 24 years of service to Kenyans. Here's Citizen TV's Ben Kirui, who has been following the Sambaza Furaha caravan with more.
The third day of the campaign's third week saw the caravan lighting up Siaya County with generous gift prizes, laughter, and unforgettable moments. Residents who joined the early Christmas festivities were treated to a variety of gifts, with Safaricom ensuring no one left empty-handed.
Kuna furaha tele sana. Nashukuru sana Safaricom na wazidi kuambia wazidi kukua, wazidi kutupatia huduma. Nina furaha ilioje, sio na kifani. Nimefurahia zaidi.
Tunasema asante sana kama Safaricom kwa sababu kazi yako kuu ni kubadilisha maisha. Tukiona vile wateja wanafurahia sana wakipata zawadi yoyote, wale wanapata airtime iwe ya 50, 100, 250, wale wanapata kuku, mbuzi, wale wanapata hata ile shopping ya Christmas, wote wanatokea na furaha sana, na hiyo pia ndio furaha zetu.
Known for a love of music, the Luo community enjoyed electrifying performances by celebrated artists such as Musa Jakadala. The entertainment didn't stop there. Popular comedians from the region had the crowd in stitches at every stop, adding flavor to the festivities. Royal Media Services presenters led by ICT and Radio Director Fred Afune were at the forefront of the celebration, engaging with the fans and amplifying the festive spirit.
It's a very proud moment. It's very fulfilling that we have been accepted, that our personalities are this big on the ground. They have connected with the people, and the people trust and accept them for who they are. We can only say thank you very much. We are number one because of our personalities, our talents, our people. Those are our biggest assets.
Staying true to its commitment to better services, Safaricom expressed its gratitude to loyal customers who have been a part of its 24-year journey. The Wednesday leg of the caravan concludes here in Bondo. On Thursday, it will traverse Sondu, Ahero, and Oyugis. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Bondo, Siaya County.
All right, Ben, thanks so much for that. Now, more Kenyans continue to win cash prizes in the Jipange Ushinde na Viusasa promotion, with the latest weekly 1 million shilling winner being Daniel Odhiambo from Homa Bay County. Last week's winner, Munyoki Chalo, received his check today from the Viusasa offices right here in Nairobi. Other daily 50,000 shillings winners include Alicia Orlando from Kisumu County, among other participants. Participants in the competition stand a chance to win 50,000 shillings daily and 1 million shillings weekly by simply depositing cash using the pay bill number 724177. Again, 724177, adding your phone number as the account number. Now, the grand prize of 3 million shillings will soon be awarded to one lucky winner at the end of the promotion. Now, the more videos you buy and watch on Viusasa, the higher your chances of winning.
Wewe ni mkulima?
Mimi ni mkulima.
Unajua hapo hivi kwa Viusasa tunapendanga wakulima sana.
Hata nimejipanga.
Si ni vizuri sasa?
Sasa naongezea stock. Alafu ile pesa ingine nimebakisha, niko na watoto shule.
Wewe ni mkulima wa nini Chalo?
Mimi ni mkulima wa kulisha kuku. Hata nalima mahindi. Hata ng'ombe nalisha.
Hata wow. So hii inaenda kuongeza ng'ombe?
Hata hii inaenda kuongeza ng'ombe na kuku.
All right. On that note, before we take a break, we're going to speak to the Secretary General of KOTU, Francis Atwoli, who's been sitting nicely, patiently. Actually, has been in this show for nearly 2 years, I think.
No, 7 months.
Oh. Okay. Are you going to make some predictions?
I was here in April last.
Did you make some Did you make the Trump prediction? Well, you said Trump won in 2020.
Yeah.
That's what you had said.
I had said like that.
Did you think he was going to win this time?
I told you that if he was not rigged out 2020, he would have won elections.
Correct.
But you know what happened in Atlanta, Georgia?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even BBC serialized what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, when they were stuffing votes, boxes, ballot boxes, and so on.
Ni kama Kenya?
I know, sio kama Kenya. World over, people have interests.
Okay, speaking of interests, how do you impeach a deputy president in about less than 2 years into your administration? Who does that?
I think it is because of discipline.
What do you mean, discipline?
Yeah, it is discipline. Because let me tell you, maybe under new constitution, nobody had faced such disciplinary measures. But I can tell you, you don't underrate William Samoei Ruto. He's such a rude politician. If you stand on his way, he will show you that he has support. Unlike other people, and he doesn't fear. Because if it were other politicians or past politicians, would have been afraid of the backlash, what will have to happen after the impeachment. Yeah.
But to impeach him,
yeah.
I mean, I thought they were friends. I thought they got along. Oh, they just had political interests.
There is nothing like that in politics. Yeah.
There's no
politics is about interests. If we take care of our interests together, we contribute to it together, then you are safe and I'm safe.
So what did Ricky G do wrong?
I think he dug his own grave. Because talking of Mount Kenya all the time and creating more enemies as a deputy president, it was not a good way. And he hardly went to other places also, trying to bring Kenyans together, trying to show that he's a national leader. He was always talking about protecting the interests of Mulima.
Yeah.
How can you do like that? And he thought that maybe with Mulima and people from Mulima behind him, nobody can touch him. He misjudged a lot of things, he miscalculated a lot of things, and he played what we call political miscalculation of his own moves.
Is he finished?
I think so, because now with the impeachment and the way he will be out of politics, it is not easy to come back. Because even those people right now who are telling him, oh, you come and join us, they have their own interest. They might just use him for the purposes of getting maybe meager or any support from central Kenya, but eventually he will still be dumped away.
Mulima is very restless right now. Extremely restless.
Yeah, but because of him, you know, let me tell you, Jeff, the Mulima politically, socially, and economically is very important to Kenyans. But you, as a leader, you don't put Mulima in a jeopardized position like what Rigathi has done. They are in business. They have friends all over. The Mulima people are everywhere in Kenya. And they need somebody who is a unifying factor, somebody who can bring them together, somebody who can bring them together with other communities of the Republic of Kenya. But if you use a language of isolation such as Rick G, then you are putting your people in jeopardy. Saying, oh, now we will, recently I had him and I said, why does he really have advisors? You know, there is no weak government. I've told you on this bench, Jeff, time and again, that there is no weak government. There isn't in the world. But for you to avoid and protect your people, you must have a talent, political talent of moving your people into the right direction. Because in this bunch of people, in this group of people, we have business community people, we have professionals, we have people who are in the government, we have people who are aspiring to be in government, we have people who have already done interview, we have people from Mulima in high positions. How do you protect them when you are causing a collision, a big collision with other members of other communities? Other communities will come together, and that is what used to happen during Moi's time.
Yeah.
When did Mulima do it? You want to tell me Rigathi will have people more than Matiba, more than Rubia? People I saw by myself, if you can remember, when Matiba came to this country.
Yes.
And then formed his further Asili. You could think Moi will go the other day, but people came together and said, what is these people from Mulima saying? They want to show us that they have numbers? Let's come together now.
You think he got too arrogant?
Very much arrogant. And he thought maybe if anything happened, Mulima would be behind him. Mulima, who was behind him when he was being impeached? No any demonstration, no anything.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to lose their daily bread, daily business, daily fortunes, because they are fighting to an individual who has gone astray. Yeah? That is the truth of the matter.
But you know, they always said that Kindiki was the first choice in the first place.
Absolutely.
Kindiki was the first choice.
Yeah.
And then this man, you know, he...
You know, he's a Kifua man. Yeah, that's why I can sum up him as a Kifua man. Because if he had advisors, he wouldn't have gone that far. Yeah, and he would have also read about the past vice presidents we have had in this Republic of Kenya, even before the promulgation of this new constitution. Yeah. If you are a vice president, behave as a vice president.
Like Moi?
Yeah.
Be quiet.
Yeah. And also plan quietly, and you will be there. But if you play politics of confrontation, you know, when I dismissed Kashagwa, it's when he had a press conference in Mombasa attacking the director of NSIS. Yes. I said, this man is not a thinker. You don't do that. Those are trained people. Those have their own departments. Those sometimes you can know where they are. They are even in your house. That's their training.
Yes.
Yeah. And you go up there and let me tell you, this boy called Nurdin Haji. He's the well-placed, well-educated. He had his professional education in Australia. And he's very much fast. He's quiet. You can't know what he's thinking about. And then you say his work is to do business in the government. You think President William Ruto did not have advisors to pick him? That position is very sensitive. Before you pick somebody, you have got to be advised by the state. Yeah. And other people even outside the state. And Kenya is faced with the hostile, sometimes neighbors. And you don't go out as a person who sits on the Security Council or Security Government National Security Committee. And you come out instead of discussing such things inside the boardroom. So I said this man has already failed. I dismissed him from that day.
Mshenzi?
Sana. Huh? Sana. Yeah. And I don't think whether he will raise his head up. He can do all what he can. He can join Kalonzo Musyoka 1,000 times. But it will not be easy for him. It will be an uphill task for other people. So I'm telling Kenyans on a national television that please, if there is somebody, let him move closer to that brother of ours, former vice deputy president, and advise him to go slow, redress where he went wrong, think properly, have advisors, have a roadmap that is very calculative, move quietly, and if it were me, I would have thanked the president for having given me those 2 years, supported me for those 2 years to be his deputy.
SG, I want to talk more about that. And also, is there an opposition in Kenya? Does it exist? Is there anything like an opposition? I want you to tell me that after the break. And also, moving forward, man, the mountain, Imelipuka. And then now the president is moving towards the lake. You saw the event.
When you are in that position, let me tell you, brother Jeff, anybody, you can attract masses from anywhere, so long as you say we are working with so and so. Finished.
Kusha.
Finished.
Huh?
Finished. That is the truth of the matter.
Yes.
Yeah. Now the president can attract support from any corner of the Republic of Kenya.
Yeah.
Go to Northeastern. Northeastern is quiet.
Very quiet.
Western is quiet.
Quiet.
Yeah. Nyanza now is quiet. Yeah. Go, and then the Rift Valley, of course.
Yes.
Go to Coast is now quiet.
Ah, yeah. And Baba, by the way, Baba. Atapata ile kazi?
Tapata.
Goja. Secretary General Kotu Francis Atwoli is in the house. You know he doesn't hold anything back. He calls it like he sees it. We're going to take a break, come back. Business News Sports, and then back to the interview. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag Jklive. Jklive takes a break. We'll be back in a moment. It is exactly 20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live here at Citizen Television. On to business news. And the government has announced plans to repossess undeveloped land in special economic zones to weed out speculators. Now, Industrialization Principal Secretary Juma Mukwana now says investors will have a 6-month period to commence setup or risk losing their leased land in the zones. Jimmy Mbogo has more on the government's plan to create close to 30,000 jobs by 2027.
Since the inception of special economic zones in the country and nearly 100 billion shillings in investment, they have only created 7,000 jobs, a number that the government now says is not commensurate to the incentives provided, which should have reflected in higher job opportunities. It is this slow pace that the government now seeks to fast-track, with the ministry warning investors that going forward, they will only have 6 months to start activities or risk losing space at special economic zones.
But what we are saying is that we really need to also tighten that space. For example, if you look at Naivasha, we've been developing the Naivasha special economic zones. Some people were given land there to develop 5 years ago, and they have not done anything. So we have now reviewed those laws to say if we give you land and within 6 months you have not made any development, then that land will be taken away from you.
We've had incidences of international investors who come looking for land and then they don't perform as per their promise. We've had an incident, and we've recalled the land from them. So we are very effective. We are serious about investment in our zone. We keep them the conditions, we keep them time.
In doing so, the government hopes to create at least 26,000 job opportunities in the next 3 years. At the same time, investors have been urged to ensure that jobs created are beneficial to employees and the respective value chain.
If people are being paid a low salary, that's not an incentive. And yet you'll find investors who come here saying Kenya is not competitive because your salaries are too high. And we're saying, but if you can't pay those salaries and you're not paying tax, what else would we get from your investment?
As the 9th annual SZ conference gets underway here in the capital, the government has remained non-committal on the specific actions that will be taken on investors found to be flaunting the labor laws in the country, even with reports indicating that Kenyan workers are being exploited by some of the multinationals operating in the country. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, Jimmy, thanks so much for that. At the same time, the Kenya Innovation Week 2024, an event dedicated to advancing the country's innovation and entrepreneurship agenda, officially opened today, bringing together policymakers, entrepreneurs and investors. Key among the main issues discussed was Kenya's growing youth unemployment crisis, with both the national and county governments pledging various initiatives in support of the startup scene. Access to capital using a major challenge for startups in Kenya. President Ruto promised to fund Kenya's innovation agency to better support new founders.
500 million for Kenya Innovation Agency and 1 billion shillings for startup fund, so that we can be able to provide the resources to de-risk some of the venture capital that is coming into Kenya.
A virtual SEZ, Your Excellency, will rapidly change this ecosystem for the benefit of technology.
At the same time, the Ministry of ICT, in partnership with private sector stakeholders, is advancing Kenya's digital economy through a World Bank-funded program dubbed the Kenya Digital Economy Acceleration Project. The project is structured around the pillars including digital infrastructure, services skills, project management, and emergency response. Information and Digital Economy PS John Tanui emphasized the need to leverage private sector capabilities for the success of the project.
We finished the planning. We got this funding February 2023, and we went through the processes necessary. The contract became effective early this year, around February, and now we've initiated the processes of procurement, engaging the stakeholders, and we are committed now to start seeing outputs from this financial year and the next financial year.
We are hoping that the private sector will bring in much more efficiency in rollout of the infrastructure, but also ensuring that the infrastructure is well maintained and looked after. In addition, from this engagement, we are hoping that the private sector will help us to penetrate private institutions and households in the country for us to spread broadband internet connectivity.
All right, on to our weekly feature, Smart Farm. And as climate change continues to disrupt traditional farming practices, agricultural experts are encouraging farmers across the country to adopt drought-tolerant crops, such as sorghum. With its ability to thrive in dry conditions and a growing demand from industries such as brewing, sorghum is being seen as a potential game changer for Kenyan farmers. Our very own Dennis Achino has more on this week's Smart Farm.
In the face of unpredictable weather and a tough economic climate, farmers in Kenya are being urged to consider sorghum farming, a crop renowned for its resilience in arid and semi-arid regions. Sorghum, a drought-tolerant grain, can withstand harsh weather conditions where other crops like maize often fail. Experts say it's an ideal option for small-scale farmers struggling with erratic rains and rising input costs.
We have increased the number from the 60 farmers to 1,000. We have also increased the area, the coverage, the Asai, Sirembe sublocation and Gotregea.
Beyond its climate resilience, sorghum is increasingly sought after for both food and industrial purposes. Breweries and livestock feed manufacturers have created new markets for the crop, making it a profitable venture for farmers.
Tumepewa mbegu ya mtama, twende tukapande. Nina hakika hii mbegu tukipanda tukifanya mzuri, tutatoka kwa njaa.
Kulingana na venye mashamba zetu zilikuwa zimeisha rutuba sana. Mahindi na mimea zingine hazikuwa zinafanya vizuri. Lakini tangu hii program ya mtama ikuje, shamba yangu mimi kwanza nilikuwa nimechoka na kulima. Lakini venye walileta program ya mtama, hiyo season iliyopita nilipata mtama magunia kadhaa.
Many brewers have increasingly turned to sorghum as a key ingredient in producing affordable beer brands, while livestock farmers use it as a nutritious animal feed. The rising demand is opening up lucrative opportunities for those willing to embrace the crop.
We want to avail seeds, which is cheap and local variety. Basically, we are encouraging farmers to do local varieties, and we are also bringing awareness to farmers that these local varieties can also be treated as commercial.
Organizations and government programs are stepping in to support the farmers making the shift to sorghum. These programs provide training, high-quality seeds, and access to markets, helping more farmers unlock the potential of this hardy crop.
Since last year, we have been having farmers embarking on sorghum planting. And from that time, we have seen a number of progress. One of them being we have had an increase in security.
So we thought that if the village elders are farming, then their subjects who are us will also farm, as a good example. And that will also impact positively in matter security.
With increased support from stakeholders and guaranteed markets, the future of sorghum farming in Kenya looks promising. Dennis Otieno, Smart Farm.
All right, from business to sports, and Brian Mishira bagged a brace as Shabana extended their fine league run with a third consecutive win, beating AFC Leopards 2-1 in a league match staged at the Gusii Stadium. Now, at the Dandora Stadium in Nairobi, Tusker FC hit Mara Sugar by the same margin. Barely a minute into the game, the Brewers got their opening goal through Shaban Oyugi. But Mara Sugar equalized 6 minutes later before Brian Ogam scored the winner for Tusker. his 7th goal of the season. In other results, Gor Mahia returned to winning ways, defeating Kakamega Homeboys 2-0 as Bandari beat Kariobangi Sharks by the same margin in Ukunda in Kwale County.
God ni mso kwa sababu vijana wamecheza kulingana na maagizo. For the longest time, the boys have really given their best. We are so proud as a team because it is not about the individual, but it's about teamwork. So we are very proud of our boys. If they keep that momentum, we are going to go far.
Game za kuwa mbaya. Zimeshikana magame kadhaa karibu, so hao vijana wadogo na expect kidogo walirudi chini. Lack of concentration kidogo ikatukosa dakika ya kwanza, ikatutoa timing, ikajaribu tukakuja tena juu tukakomboa, then tukirudi tena second half kidogo uchovu kiasi pia.
Still on football, and Harambee Starlets have this afternoon touched down in Morocco ahead of their twin friendly matches against the hosts, the Atlas Lionesses. Now, Starlets, who left the country yesterday evening, will be training for 2 days before playing their first match on Friday and a repeat game on Tuesday. The 2 matches will be staged at the Mohammed VI Football Complex. The squad features a blend of experienced players and emerging starlets, including junior starlets captains Elizabeth Ochaka and Christine Adhiambo. From football to golf, and the 14th edition of the Kipchumba Karori International volleyball tournament will see teams from Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda and other countries compete in the tantalizing showdown. Now, the event, slated for December 12th to 15th at Eldoret National Polytechnic in Uasin Gishu County, aims to create room for local talent development as well as promoting the sport of volleyball.
When you come to this senior level, Kina Moim, what they help us now with is to inspire the rest and to inspire a generation. And when I accepted this offer to take part as a patron of this event, I accepted it knowing that I come with a young energy to inspire the generation behind me.
I want to encourage all of us that let us zero in to very many sporting activities, and quite a number of the unity of this country will be a thing of the past.
Between 1 o'clock and 3, we will have a special cultural and community participating in different events. So exact 3 p.m., that's when we'll have the finals for the men.
All right, from volleyball to golf, and all is set for the 2024 NCBA Golf Series Grand Finale this coming Friday at the 18-hole Muthaiga Golf Club. Now, the highly anticipated event will bring together more than 230 golfers from across the East African region who triumphed during the qualifying phase and will now battle it out for the series top honors in the overall men's, ladies and junior categories. The finale promises an exciting conclusion to this year's series, with winners in various divisions set to walk away with substantial prizes. The top 3 overall winners, men winner and ladies winner, will each bag an NCBA unit trust worth 120,000 shillings. All right, my favorite part. News is done, business done, sports is done, and it's time for the bench. Secretary General of Courtus, Francis Atwoli, has been sitting very patiently. You're a patient man, aren't you, SG? You're a patient man.
I can see your biryani jacket.
You saw. SG, you're very observant.
A level of quality.
Yeah. Si rahisi.
Sio rahisi. Sio rahisi.
Hawaijui.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
You know, and even if you know and you cannot afford it, you just keep quiet.
President Twoli is next on the bench. Stay tuned, stand by, tweet at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag Jklive. Jklive takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.